Are you just now coming? Hey, you said the magic words. Look at that. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Jana Bala Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Jana Bala Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Nandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanashadi Yamana Tiravana Shadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Jadi Abanata Jamuna Tiravana Jadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parijagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. You can stay. You can go. Okay. Bhadra Purnima. Balaram's appearance day is in the full moon of the month of Shravan, right? Balaram's appearance day, Balaram Purnima, is on the full moon of the month of Shravan. And the very next day starts the waning moon. And that's this month. Month of Bhadra. And Radharani's appearance day is on the 8th day of the waxing moon. Right? Is that right? Radhastami? 8th day of the waxing moon of the month of Bhadra. And then at the end of the month comes Bhadra Purnima. So this is kicking off the celebration for Bhadra Purnima for ISKCON Naperville. Conceived by and inspired by and powered by Vaisheshika Prabhu, who got this idea some time ago, a few years ago, based upon a verse from Srimad-Bhagavatam that says, in 11th canto, 12th canto? 12th canto, that says one who gives as a gift this Bhagavad Purana on a golden throne, doesn't say what kind of a golden throne, just as a golden throne, as a gift to someone, take it back to Godhead. No visa, no passport, no standing in line. Take it back to Godhead. Just give a gift of Srimad-Bhagavatam to somebody on a golden throne. I think the temple supplies golden thrones. So the purpose of this evening's discussion is to get the ball rolling, the Bhadra Purnima ball. But I was looking for a flyer. Do you have a flyer? You know, I'll send you the old one, and then you can just change out the dates and put in current dates. Then you can send me back. Because it's good to have an image that says it all, the golden throne included. So, the glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam. A very nice place to begin, hearing the glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Well, there are many nice places to begin. Could be there's the Bhagavatam itself, speaking of the glories of the Bhagavatam. But I'm going to begin with Sanatana Goswami. One of his books is Stavamala. And in the Stavamala, there's this Krishna Lila Stava, that section of Stavamala, where he writes, and it's all about Sharva Bhagavat Prana. It's about the Bhagavatam. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all the Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you who are enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna, who has returned among us. Now, he doesn't say anything that's startling, but he's expressing not just poetically, but he's expressing his heart. And this is a section, Stava Mala. Stava means prayers, and a string of prayers. And there's a whole there's different sections. Stava Mala about the holy name, Stava Mala about, here there's the Srimad-Bhagavatam. The essence is that the Bhagavatam is a person, just like the name is a person, not just a sound. The Bhagavatam is a person. And the Bhagavatam is actually Lord Krishna who has returned among us. which means, as Prabhupada writes in the last purport of Canto 1, Chapter 3, one can see Krishna at every page from proper hearing. It's using Prabhupada's phrase, the summum bonum. Summum bonum, that's Latin. Somehow he picked up that phrase, maybe because Bhaktisiddhanta used that phrase. Summum bonum, the totality of everything. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life. And then he goes on to list anything that you may get from Krishna by prayers to Krishna or serving Krishna, etc. It's available same in Srimad-Bhagavatam, whatever boons or benedictions or benefits one may wish to get. And you continue and go through like this. This is, the Bhagavatam is Krishna. Dhyayam swasti ayanam. Ayanam, it's the vehicle for all good fortune. So, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of the age of Kali, just paraphrasing that nice verse from Canto 1, Chapter 3. Another, O Srimad-Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God on the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. You are Lord Krishna, or you're an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Either way. Oh, Srimad-Bhagavatam. Oh, my only friend. Oh, my companion. He's listing different relationships. Bhagavatam is one's friend, just as Krishna is your friend. Suradam Sarvadehinam. So is the Bhagavatam. My companion, my teacher, my great wealth. Oh, my deliverer. Oh, my good fortune. Oh, my bliss. Ananda. Ananda namostute. I offer my obeisances unto you. He doesn't just like Srimad-Bhagavatam. He is immersed in all the ways that one wants happiness. He's experiencing that happiness in relationships. Because Krishna is the Sanojar. He's the Summum Bodham. He's everything. Companion. Friend. Teacher. I just got a letter today from somebody from China that's struggling, and I think I'm just going to send them this verse. If there's no shelter, then it's very scary. Like a boat at sea with no rudder in a storm. Very scary. I mean, if you're just wading out and you're knee-high somewhere and it's stormy, it's one thing. If you're out in the middle of the sea and the rudder's gone, very scary. But Bhagavatam is that boat to cross with a proper captain. O Srimad-Bhagavatam, O giver of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the very fallen, please do not ever leave me please become manifested upon my heart and my throat, accompanied by pure love of Krishna. So Sanatana Goswami is a lover of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And if we hang out with Sanatana Goswami, we'll become lovers of Srimad-Bhagavatam for sure. For sure. Here's a Mahatma Statement about Srimad-Bhagavatam from Padma Purana. I will now tell you the means of having Krishna manifest within one's heart. This is Uddhava speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. When Lord Krishna is unmanifest, he will appear from Srimad-Bhagavatam. Isn't this nice how the Padma Purana is glorifying Bhagavad Purana? Whenever and wherever the devotee Bhagavata hears and recites the book Bhagavata, at that time and at that place Lord Krishna personally appears. Wherever a verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam or even half verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam is recited, Lord Krishna and his beloved gopis manifest there. Isn't that nice? After attaining human birth in the land of Bharata, those who do not hear Srimad-Bhagavatam due to sinful activities are committing suicide. A person who regularly hears or recites Srimad-Bhagavatam delivers the forefathers of his wife, mother, and father. Hear Srimad-Bhagavatam, please. Now, there's a very nice description where Srimad-Bhagavatam is being glorified. And the image, this is, I think it's also from Padma Purana. There's a photograph here of a village in South India on the bank of the Tungabhadra River. And there was a very beautiful city. And in that very beautiful city, there was a Brahmana named Atmadev. And Atmadev was very wealthy, but he still went here and there begging because he was a bit of a miser and he wanted more wealth and more wealth and more wealth and more wealth. He was knowledgeable in the scriptures, but he was on the greedy side. And he had a wife. Dunduli was his wife. And the description is that she was very beautiful, born in a high Brahmin family, but she had a vicious tongue. She was regularly engaged in criticizing, finding fault, speaking cruel in a talkative, miserly, and quarrelsome manner. And other traits, she was very, very expert in her household affairs. She wasn't lazy, she did everything very nicely and very carefully. And Atmadev and Dunduli, after some time in marriage, they had no children. And they were very anxious about not having children. And after some time, Atmadev, out of deep frustration, he went to undergo austerities. And in his mood of sadness from not having children, he got into the mood of wanting to give up his life. Some time passed, and a sage passed by and saw him weeping. He was trying to meditate, but he couldn't meditate because he was feeling so sad. So the sage asked him, "What's wrong? Why are you feeling this sadness?" And Atmadev opened his heart. He felt inspired by this holy man and described the wickedness of his life, miserly and greedy and wanting not so much welfare for others And maybe because of his sinful activities in this life or previous life, he's now bereft of even the simple act of having a child. And he was in a moment of despair, ready to give up his life. Please save me. So the sage discussed with him about what happened with King Sagara in the, I noticed the girls have this Ramayana coloring book. That's a Ramayana coloring book. Do you know who Sagara is? You know who Ramachandra is? And Ramachandra's father? Dasarath. Very good. And Dasarath was in the line of the Sun dynasty. Who was the head of the Sun dynasty? Ikshvaku, right? Ikshvaku? Ikshvaku was the son of Manu, Vivasvata Manu, and Manu was the son of Vivaswan, the sun god. So they're in the Sun dynasty, Ramachandra. But going back some generations was King Sagra. He's described in the Bhagavatam. So this book, this little story from Padma Purana, is describing the same thing, where the sage was saying King Sagra, he was also not having children. And he went through great difficulties, but finally he had children. And Atmadev was kind of still in this desperate mood. If I can't have children, then what's the use of my life? I'd better give up my life. That would be better. So the sage described the story of King Chitraketu. It's also in the Bhagavatam. So it's narrated in Padma Purana by a Brahmin or a sage to Atmadev. And those of you that know the Bhagavatam story of King Chitraketu, he is pictured over on the left side wearing this blue robe. And in the crib is his son that just died, but then was brought back to life by Narada Muni. King Chitraketu had too many wives, queens, with the hope that he would have a child, but it didn't happen. He didn't understand it's not meant to happen. So he kept marrying more queens and no son. Long story. Behind Narada Muni, that bearded sadhu, that's Angira Muni. Angira Muni made an arrangement for the king to have a son. And he warned him, you are not meant to have a son, but you can have a son, but he will bring you both happiness and distress. And King Chitraketu thought, well, even if he's, talks back or is a little unruly, better to have a son than no son. Little did he know. It's not just he talked back, he didn't get to the point of talking. When he was still a little baby, the other queens who also had no son poisoned the child. So he learned his lesson, because the child came back from the dead at Narada's encouragement and told him transcendental knowledge so that the king could hear. So the king got it. But Atmadev heard the whole story, but he didn't get it. He's still attached. So very much like what Angira did, the sage did. He gave him a mango and said, if you give this mango to your wife, and for a whole year she eats only one meal a day, then at the end of a year you'll have a child. So he came back very happy. Dunduli was given the mango. She thought, well, it's great they can have a child, but I don't know about this fasting like this for a whole year. And she began to consider her disqualifications. she became humbled by the circumstance and filled with anxiety about what to do. She didn't eat the mango. And Dunduli had a sister, doesn't give a sister's name, but his sister was pregnant, and she asked her sister, what should I do? What should I do? Terrible situation. So his sister said, I have a suggestion. I'm pregnant, and I'll discuss this with my husband, but when the child is born, we can give you the child to take care of. And no one will know the difference. You can tell everybody you ate the mango and you're waiting for your pregnancy, and the child will be yours. So Dunduli thought that's a really good idea. It wasn't a really good idea, but she thought it was a really good idea. So she agreed. And they fed the mango to a cow to see what would happen. And sure enough, after some months, the cow gave birth to a male child, a boy. But he looked a little different than most boys. He had ears that looked like a cow. There was Dunduli's cow, so she and her husband, Atmadev, they accepted the child as their child. They named the child Gokarna. Gokarna. He had ears like cow. Gokarna. And Gokarna turned out to be a very qualified person. But the child that was born, that was really his sister's child, he was really bad. Dundakari. And as he grew up, Dundakari became like really, really bad. Really, like, all the bad things you can say about what people do that's bad, he did them. And he was very, very cruel to his father, very disrespectful to his mother. After some time, his father left home. Again, went back to the shore of this river and spent the remaining portion of his life. He was quite old at that time, and left the world. That left Dundakari with his mother, and he harassed his mother so badly, she jumped in a well and drowned herself. So that left the house to himself. And Dundakari kept prostitutes and, did all bad things. So many bad things. But he, Dundakari and Gokarna, they had a friendship because they considered each other to be like brothers. This painting was picked because that stage looks like he has cow ears. Gokarna. Anyway, after some time, Dundakari forget exactly how he died. He died in a very unpleasant way. Forget how he died. Some terrible, terrible disease. And he became a ghost due to his past deeds. And in his ghost condition, he was suffering like anything. Suffering like anything. And his brother, Gokarna, he had gone on pilgrimage. When he heard that his brother had died, he came back. And his brother began to haunt him and appeal to him, help me get out of this situation. So he decided, Gokarna being religious, he went to perform rituals for the one's departed ancestors. And though all the rituals he did didn't work, came back. Gokarna was pleading with him, please do something, please do something. So he consulted a Brahmana. Gokarna consulted a Brahmana what to do. And the Brahmana recommended that you go to a place where you can speak the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam from beginning to end in the course of 7 days. And at the end of those 7 days, your brother will be relieved of his ghost body and he'll be liberated. So this is Padma Purana describing. They had a yajna set up, and Gokarna, who was very much appreciated by everybody, was the Bhagavatam speaker. And because Dundukari was in this ghost body, he couldn't attend in a normal way, so he concealed himself inside bamboo poles by the side of the speaking place. And at the end of each day, one of the knots in the bamboo pole broke. And at the end of the 7th day, Dundukari became liberated. The bamboo pole cracked, his body lifted from the hole, the hollow of the bamboo pole. A Vaikuntha airplane descended, and he ascended the Vaikuntha air, sinful, terrible, wicked person, and started ascending up into the sky. And Gokarna said, wait a minute. In this assembly, there were many other people who were hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, and they didn't get the same result that you got. So how is that? He said, I was listening very attentively because I was suffering so much. My life depended on it. So the people that were remaining, they said, let's have another reading. We'll be more attentive this time. There's Gokarna, the speaker, and there's his stepbrother, Dundukari, now in his angelic form, being lifted. Here's a nice drawing. When Dundukari was speaking in this way, the sky became effulgent, and a Vaikuntha airplane appeared, carrying associates of, you can't read it because the Bhagavatam is in the way. Associates of the Lord appeared, carrying associates of the Lord. The airplane appeared, carrying associates of the Lord. There we go. Okay. So there's the Vimana, there's the bamboo breaking, and then there's Dundukari, and there's Gokarna with his cow ears, and the assembly of personalities hearing. That's also in Padma Purana as the other reference to how important Srimad-Bhagavatam is. There's a whole section, Bhagavat Mahatmya section of Padma Purana. It's really nice. It's a very long section, just glorifying Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's really wonderful. Really wonderful. Because Bhagavatam is such a wonderful literature. Here's a nice verse from Canto 1, Chapter 2. Yad anyudyasina yukta. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work by remembering the personality of God, and therefore who will not pay attention to his message. Especially if you know you can go back to God in a Vaikuntha Vimana, especially delivered. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada spent so much time, so much deep devotion to prepare these literatures. Whew. Try writing something. It takes a lot of time. What to speak, the preparation to write volumes and volumes and volumes. But so dedicated, so dedicated. And that was his mission. So with this little Prabhupada's life, there's this image of the Jaladuta in the background. Over on the right side, that's the Madan Mohan temple, and the left side, Statue of Liberty. Big difference. So crossing the sea on the Jaladuta to bring the message of the Srimad-Bhagavatam to this dark world, the western part of the planet, and starting off in New York City, alone, penniless. I mean, he said he had $14, but he had 7 rupees, which at that time was $14, but you couldn't even change rupees into dollars. So he didn't have a penny. Nothing. With a mission. Great determination. And the message is the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami having his message repeated by Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya. Very different scene than New York City or any other place of the world in our modern times. Another verse from the second canto. The supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which men can attain loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So what do you do if you don't really have a taste? Now, many devotees I know love the Bhagavatam, maybe not as much as Sanatana Goswami, but they love Srimad-Bhagavatam. My understanding is there's going to be a request of different persons to make testimonials about how the Bhagavatam has touched their lives. Is that right? Is that the plan? Just something for me personally. I can say one morning at the Potomac Temple, attending the morning class were Anutama and Rukmini, his good wife, and, a small number of other devotees. It's not a big congregation temple. At the end of the class, first person, Rukmini. She's very elevated Vaishnavi. And she said, could you share with us what it is that has kept you going in Krishna consciousness for so many years? And I hadn't ever been asked that question before. It was kind of a spontaneous question, a Rukmini kind of question. And I didn't have to think much. It just quickly came out. It said 2 things, well, 3 things. 3 things. Prabhupada, the holy name, and Srimad-Bhagavatam. And Srimad-Bhagavatam is my deity, my life and soul. And that is true. So that's kept me going for a good number of years. The manner in which the Bhagavatam is interacted with is very important. Like this story of Dundakari being liberated because he was ardently hearing, or very absorbed in his hearing. So the qualitative manner of our hearing is certainly very important, but also taking the message inside and living by it. That is, rendering devotional service according to the teachings of the Bhagavatam. Maybe some of you attended the Manashiksha seminar. How many here attended the Manashiksha seminar, or heard it recorded? It's good. It's Raghunath Das Goswami, and the concluding section of Manashiksha is very elevated, and it's describing entrance into the kind of love that we've been speaking about during Radhastami, the kind of love of Srimati Radharani that Raghunath Das had and was teaching how to get there. And in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary on that section, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary mentions the very same thing that we find in Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami, verse number 8. Those of you that have taken Bhakti Shastri, maybe some of you even have taught Bhakti Shastri. In verse number 8, it gives stages of absorption in chanting the holy name, and absorption in Krishna consciousness. And it's right in the purport of Nectar Devotion, Nectar Instruction, text number 8. You can look at it later. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur expresses the same thing in relation to Manashiksha. And it's a degree of absorption that carries one to the stage of perfection. And the stage of perfection is accessible even through Srimad-Bhagavatam, just reading, hearing, absorbing oneself in Srimad-Bhagavatam carefully. By serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service one gains affinity. That's chapter 16. Affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. Then the next verse. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who is the Paramatma Supersoul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart. Of the devotee was developed the urge to hear his messages, which in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. That's 16, 17, and here's 18. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, Bhagavata Sevaya, both of those are Bhagavata Sevaya. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Why not completely destroyed? Almost completely destroyed means it's a stage. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu. That's the Nishtha stage. Keep going. When you get to the Nishtha, almost destroyed stage, keep going. And something comes after Nishtha. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati. Transcendental devotional service becomes established Naishtaki as an irrevocable fact. And 19. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. Sounds like a nice path. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. What's after that? Here's text 21. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced. Vidyante hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samshaya, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive action is terminated when one sees oneself and one's master, drishta evat manishvare. And then, Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, with great delight, because such devotional service is enlivening to the self. This chapter 2 of Canto 1 is very powerful, as the Bhagavatam is very powerful. It's laying out the step-by-step sequence of becoming freed from material contamination up to that stage of completely connected to Krishna. And Bhagavatam has the power. Anyone who immerses himself in Srimad-Bhagavatam knows that to be a fact. And especially if one associates with those who have such affinity, one experiences it even more directly and swiftly and powerfully. Moving from Canto 1, Chapter 2 to Chapter 3, here's the celebrated light of the Bhagavad verse. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. That's the BBT illustration for that verse. There's the light of the Bhagavad being held up by Vyasadeva, showing Krishna in the spotlight of the Bhagavatam, and down there is the dark age of Kali. It's a very nice verse. Just a couple things about this verse. This verse was the inspiration for Srila Prabhupada to write Light of the Bhagavad. Every year, we over here in America, we have our 4th of July, Independence Day. Then we have, fireworks and stuff like that. In China, they have something comparable. They call it national holiday, but it's not just one day, it's a week. And anybody here have Chinese people in your workplace? They're workaholics. They work. So for 1 week, they don't work. National holiday. I mean, some people work, but... So it's a really good time for having a seminar, because people are free. It's a really good time for a seminar. So for when I was able to visit China, I was going during national holiday and having a 1-week seminar on different topics. So this year it's going to be virtual, of course. I'm not going to China. They're not going anywhere either. So the topic for this year is Light of the Bhagavad. A whole week of Light of the Bhagavad. Light of the Bhagavad. And so a little sharing. But how did Light of the Bhagavad manifest? There's a nice story. You want to hear the story? Sure. It's Prabhupada's story. 1961. No, Prabhupada left, he got on the Jaladuta in 1966. So wind the clock back 5 years. And Prabhupada was, he had not yet taken sannyas. He was living in Vrindavan at Vangsi Gopal temple. It's not really a temple. It's just a family's home. On the ground floor of their large home, they have a temple. So it's called Vangsi Gopal Temple. And he had a little tiny room. I mean, I have photographs of the little tiny room. It's a really tiny room. It's like a big closet. That was where he stayed for about a year. before he went to Radha Damodar temple. And he was meditating on the instruction of his spiritual master as his life and soul to go to the West. In the course of his going here and there, preparing Srimad-Bhagavatam and starting Back to Godhead magazine and all those things that he was doing, someone, an acquaintance, gave him a little flyer. The flyer was an invitation to an event in Tokyo for speakers from India to go to Tokyo and participate in something like celebration of the human spirit. So Prabhupada wrote to the organizer, and the organizer wrote back, giving him a letter of invitation so he could get a visa to attend and be a speaker. So they had some communication back and forth. What was going to be, the topic was going to be, Prabhupada was consider people from the Far East, they particularly appreciate understanding life through experiences in nature. That's at least the perception that he had. And so he took a chapter from Canto 10, which is just about nature. It's the autumn season, the rainy season, followed by the autumn season. And it's just speaking about, what's going on in Vrindavan during the rainy and autumn season. And he then, Prabhupada, composed a 20,000-word text, which he called Light of the Bhagavad. And through those texts, of course, aided by the commentary of our acharyas, he was describing, for an audience he hadn't met yet, how to understand Krishna and how to appreciate virtues and values of life through nature, through chapter 20 of Canto 10. He never went because he didn't have money for a plane ticket. So he didn't even get a visa, but he didn't go. But he had a whole plan. His spiritual master said, go to the West. He was going to the East because there was an invitation. So he was, periscope up. I'm going to go check it out, see what I can do. It never got published. He had very detailed plans he had requested in writing for the organizer of this event to have paintings made by an Oriental artist, and he described what he wanted in the paintings to illustrate his book. He was like, he had vision. 20 years passed, and the manuscript was found, along with Prabhupada's instructions for the event organizer. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, somehow they found, I don't know where, they found many, many, many things that were Prabhupada's old things. And he took it to Hong Kong and had it published, had an artist make the paintings. And the paintings were made. The book was published in Chinese. That was the first publication. Of course, it was written in English, then later it was printed in English. Maybe some of you get your ISKCON News reports. ISKCON News. Just recently, somewhere in Brazil, in a fancy mall, that whole devotees arranged a whole display for Light of the Bhagavad in a mall in Brazil. I mean, every town and village, right? The plan was Tokyo. So I'm going to be teaching Light of the Bhagavad. I'm speaking about what's on this slide here for the national holiday this year. But the bad news was the book was out of print. So I asked them, is there some way you can get it in print in time for the October 1st through 7th national holiday? Because I'd like to promote the book. They said, first we have to find the manuscript. They couldn't find the manuscript. And then anyway, there's just a little background. So now the BBT has a policy that took a lot of time to develop, how English words must be translated to Chinese this way and not that way. Because there's been controversy over how do you translate English into Chinese with certain words like consciousness. It's a big buzz. So anyway, a Chinese PDF was found. And they converted the PDF into digital. The devotee that is in charge of this part of the BBT, he very kindly gave his undivided attention and went through the whole document, the whole book, to see if there changes were needed for a digitalized version of the text. And I just got a message this morning that it'll be printed in time for the national holiday. So we'll have the devotees who are attending this event. And my guess is it's going to be well over 300. Somewhere between 300 and 400 people every day, twice a day, morning and evening, attending the national holiday presentation. I'm speaking in English. There's slides in English, Chinese, and someone translating into Chinese, going through the whole light of the Bhagavad. Which, how in this dark age of Kali, light can come. That Prabhupada chose that title to introduce the message of the Bhagavatam to the Oriental part of the world. Chapter 20 of Canto 10. It's really nice. And when I'm done doing that for the Chinese holiday, I plan to do it again in English in America. It's very exercising to create, something that presents this properly. So, light of the Bhagavad. Soon after Krishna's departure, the Srimad-Bhagavatam appeared. As the sun sets in the west, the full moon, as brilliant as the sun, appeared on the eastern horizon. Bhagavatam, to give light in this dark age of Kali. And it's that kind of literature. It does. And I don't know what inspired the devotees in Brazil to put light of all things they could have done, light of the Bhagavad into a mall. But, big displays, and iskonnews.com, I think, is where it reported like that. So this is Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse 43. Going back, Srimad-Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God. And it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva. There he is on the right. The incarnation of God, it is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. I mean, who can write some advertisement like that? Canto 12. This Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedanta philosophy, because its subject matter is the absolute truth, which, while not different from the spirit soul, is the ultimate reality, one without a second. The goal of this literature is exclusive devotional service unto the supreme truth. We're almost done. Srimad-Bhagavatam is declared to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy, saying something quite similar as the previous one. One who has felt satisfaction from its nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. And this is the last slide, the treasure of transcendental wisdom. Now, if I had a Bhadra Purnima poster, that's what would go in the next slide. But instead, we just got a blank wall. But you send that to me, that's what I'll... Okay. Bhadra Purnima How many more days? Well, huh? How many more?
September 10th.
10 days. 10 days, 12 days. Do I hear 13? Very soon. I know when it is. I was asking how many days. Can you do the math? How many days is that? Oh, you do the math and I'll keep speaking. 12 days. 12 days. So there's 12 days to, do the rah-rah team. Let's see how many Bhagavatam sets we can distribute. Vaisheshika Prabhu, in anticipation of Bhadra Purnima, in anticipation of the Bhadra month, he sent me, his vision, just short description of his vision for this year, next year, and the next year, and how to hit, goals, because he's a believer, and it's true from experience. When you set a goal for anything, you take book distribution, you set a goal. As soon as you mean it, you set a goal, your intelligence starts to work to figure out how you're going to meet the goal. Say it negatively. If you don't set a goal, your intelligence isn't going to work. It gets kind of mushy and, notional. But you set a goal, and if you mean it, it's up to Krishna, of course, but you have a goal, and you're striving for service to Radha and Krishna to meet that goal, and you'll find ways. Intelligence will work to find ways. So that's what I understand is this is the kickoff of that effort, because during this visit it's been Radharani and preparing for Radhastami. But then on the way is to Bhadra Purnima, because she appears on the 8th day of the waxing moon of the month of Bhadra, and then comes the Purnima, just a short time after Radharani's appearance day. So it's not a whole good number of days, 12 days. And what's your magic number? What's your goal?
1.
How many so far?
20.
20 with the goal of 120. 120. 120. So if you know persons that don't have Srimad-Bhagavatam, or persons you think it would be really nice if they could have Srimad-Bhagavatam, you can encourage them to purchase Srimad-Bhagavatam, or you can make a gift of Srimad-Bhagavatam to them. And there's so many other options. I'm sure you'll hear more about what the other options are. There's one person I recently saw, he wrote saying, I've made an annual pledge, and here's my annual pledge. And it's with $300 for a set of Bhagavatams. So people can do that. And it's not him, he has his own Bhagavatams, he just wants to do this every year. Well, so take it seriously, because if you don't take it seriously, it's just notional and you walk out the door and nothing will happen. But if you take it seriously, what is it that you can do towards that goal of 120? I'm doing something that I can, think of. That's like encouraging all of you. And etc. You figure out, you set a goal for yourself. The temple has a goal. And what part of that temple goal can I do? And then there's the world. And Vaisheshika, I forget what his number is. It's a really big number. But it's not unrealistic number. When he is very clear about setting goals that are realistic. And his goal of 120 is realistic. What was the number last year?
We targeted 108, but it was 130 total distribution.
Got the numbers? 108 was the plan. The bell rang at 1:30. So this year the target is 120, which is less than last year. And so far it's 20, with another 12 days to go. So you do the math, you have 12 days to do 100 sets, let's see. So it's important to not, only the persons in the room, but the persons in the room, think of something that you can do in practical terms, somebody you know and something, whatever is realistic, meaningful, and make a list of 3 or 4 options and try them out and see what happens. And why are we doing this? It's not material. In material life, some things like this might be done, a raffle or whatever it is that people do, but it's honoring our founder acharyas and going back in line of disciplic succession, their love for Srimad-Bhagavatam, their wish for the light of the Bhagavatam to go into the lives of others as widely, as broadly as possible. This is a dark age, and it's not getting brighter, it's getting darker and darker. So the light of the Bhagavad gives an opportunity for people to have something else, some other option in their life. And then comes the fun that comes after that. After there's so many Bhagavatam sets out there, then to encourage people to read the Bhagavatam, to have reading groups, or persons, 1 or 2 people that read together, or some other program. And by doing that on a regular basis, something happens. The heart becomes cleansed, transformed. The way that you see the world starts to change. The world may be quite the same, but the way that you experience the world around you will start to change. And then you can be an instrument or a beacon of light to help transform others just by that light of the Bhagavad that's gone inside you. And then you do that collectively, and it adds light in this dark age of Kali. It's very powerful. That's our Acharya's plan. That's Vyasadev's plan. It's Prabhupada's plan. It's our predecessor Acharya's plan. Bring light into the dark age of Kali after Krishna's departure, where religious principles take shelter. So let's see if there's some discussion. 20 to 8, going for nearly an hour.
To share something.
You want to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead, say something.
I want to share how I get to distribute the first Bhagavatam set. It was in around 2013, something like that. My teacher said, we were just walking into their home, and she said, would you distribute the Bhagavatam set to the neighbors, opposite neighbors, she said. And I said, for sure. But then after that, we moved to Naperville. And so that stayed with me. The Bhagavatam distribution was not that active those days. So that stayed with me. So wherever we are going for the book distribution, I was happily carrying the Bhagavatam set. It was like carrying a baby. And one of the event at Lemon Temple, suddenly someone came and took the Bhagavatam set. It was like, wow. So that was the first breakthrough. Basically, we were just carrying like wherever we go. So the reason I'm telling this story is I'm going to put you all into trouble. So the next breakthrough was door to door. So we also want to distribute door to door. The same thing we were carrying everywhere. And in the community next to the Cambridge chairs. And we knocked the door, so they took the set. So what I'm going to ask is, we have 50 sets sitting in the garage. So one request is load up your car, 5 sets in your car. Just carry it.
Really? 5? 5 per person or per person?
car. 5 per car, Guru Maharaj.
5 per car. How many? You have a truckload or what out there? You have?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Right here?
Yes.
Wow, you're prepared.
So the idea is we're also having a glorification series inspired by Devi Murti Mataji's inspiration. We're going to want to fill our consciousness with the glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam. There will be we said testimonials or classes morning and evening. So please don't miss. These are all going to be personal, like how Bhagavatam touched each of our lives. And please carry 5 sets with you. We don't know where Krishna, will open the door. So that's it. And we will have a special celebration on September 10. Hare Krishna.
5 sets. Good luck. But if you have an idea and some vision, some plan, then why not? Why not? A little pause, and if you start to think, can I really do that? You start to think, and ideas will come. It works like that. I remember the first time Vaisheshika Prabhu presented this concept of setting goals. I don't know if any of you have had the experience, anyone who has had the experience of being before him when he's speaking about book distribution. He's a really inspired and therefore inspiring personality. And he loves it. And because he loves it, it inspires others to love it. So it's true. We had this, meeting where making pledges. I forget exactly how it went, but I just remember as soon as I took the idea seriously and said, what's a realistic number? And then started zeroing in on a realistic number. Immediately, I started thinking of ways to achieve that realistic number. And until I put a number to it, it was just notional and blah, blah. But it started taking shape as soon as there was a commitment. And, when you make a commitment, it's like you mean it. You don't know how exactly it's going to happen. You have some possible ideas. But even the possible ideas don't form until you start making a commitment. It just works that way. The whole thing, goals are powerful. It's one of his sutras. Goals are powerful. So set a goal for yourselves. 12 days. Okay, comments?
Guru Maharaj, I wanted to add to what Prabhu said. The loading up of 5 sets actually really works because I remember one time Govinda Mohini Mataji had an accident, actually, car accident, and the person who was actually hit her car offered to fix the car. And she said, my car is anyway old. You can give me the money and take a Bhagavatam set. And they did, actually. She did. She fixed the deal right there when the accident happened. And next day they met at a parking lot, and that, I don't know what the person thought, but they took the set. So things like that happened. And
That's wild.
Suniti Mataji is another person who, wherever she goes, she'll talk about Bhagavatam, and they'll always have something in their home, and somebody comes to take it. So this loading up is actually a nice idea. So, and by the way, it'll help Vinod Bihari Prabhu's garage to be emptied so we can load more books here.
I never heard that one before. How long ago was that?
4 years.
Phew. Spontaneous, huh? Good for you.
Experience.
Okay.
I was in Bangalore.
Bangalore.
I was going for collecting fund, life membership.
Speak into the microphone.
I was life membership preacher.
Yeah.
My driver is driving, and in front of me there was one car going, number 777. Membership fee was that time 7,777 with Bhagavatam set. Then I stopped him on the road. He said, "Why did you stop? Why Swamiji? What do you want?" No, I want to know how you got this number for your car. We are making life member, giving is the same rate, 7,777 we are charging. Why don't you take this Bhagavatam set with membership? What is that Bhagavatam set? Then I first opened the Bhagavatam, given for the card. Oh, there's this many books, 18 volume, big books. Yes, with the Bhagavatam and with membership we'll get also. What is the facility for membership? Then he asked, then I explain about membership. Then he took with Bhagavatam membership everything on the road.
That's spontaneous. And if you're not thinking like that, it's you know, the opportunity won't manifest. It'll just be another blip on the screen. That's a very nice example. Be instruments, and then opportunities manifest, and inspiration. Very good. Anyone like to share anything, speak anything, ask anything? Or we'll close up. Yes?
If you could please expand on your experience about spreading Krishna consciousness in China. Was it easy?
For me, it was easy because they did everything. There's cultural differences, and that's not too much of a hurdle. There's government, and that's a big hurdle. My experience is, speaking in a general way, of course, there's the whole spectrum of types of people, but the types of people who would come to programs that we would do, often, you know, public programs would often be in yoga studios, and that's how it would start. But there's the heart's attraction it's a perfect fit for Chinese people and Chinese culture. Here's two examples. In many of the evening programs, we drive, and there's a natural tendency for Chinese people in the evenings to go to a public park. They like nature, they like the outdoors. And one of the things I've seen many places is they have, it's older generation primarily, but they have music and they dance. It's just part of their culture. They have music, of course, music that they're accustomed to hearing, and they dance. And similarly, I remember very clearly, we went to Karoli. Some of you know where Karoli is. It's a place where the Madan Mohan deity is today. And the Madan Mohan darshan is closed for quite some time in intervals, and then the hall starts to fill up again as it's getting time for darshan. So we were there for darshan. We got there at the very end, and then the deity curtain closed. So, and everyone disappeared. So in the back area, the back part of this big hall, the back part of the big hall, there was a bhajan group. And the bhajan group started, as everybody was leaving, they started singing. And there were a group of Chinese ladies with us when we were visiting Karoli. And they started dancing like all the Hare Krishna devotees dance. The ladies dance, all the hand gestures, the motion gestures, moving in a circle, just completely like, they were trained up to do all this nice dancing. It's part of their culture. It's within their system. So in that sense, with the people, it's really easy. And the obstacle is not the cultural differences and language differences. There's some other thing that's an obstacle. But younger generation people are becoming more rebellious towards being controlled. Anyway, and the government's going to try to quash it, but it's going to be a kaboom, a phenomena, as far as I can see. And the government's going to not like it, and they're going to try to do things, and they're already trying to do things, and so forth. But there's a lot. It's natural interest and cultural similarity. So it's fun. It's a little, cloak and dagger, but it's fun. Balaram.
Thank you, Maharaj. I just want to express a deep gratitude to you. The reason behind I'm talking about 25 years ago. I used to go to ISKCON Bangalore. Then I was very attracted to that katha in the mornings. That went for some time, that was a pause. But in 2002, when I met you in Detroit, you gave that taste for Srimad-Bhagavatam. That increased day by day. But now I can tell you, during this COVID, I'm completely addicted to Srimad-Bhagavatam every day.
Mm.
So it's just because of your mercy and blessings. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And,
2002, that was a few years ago.
you were in Detroit, used to do morning, afternoon, two classes. I remember that.
Okay.
Doctor's places, everywhere I used to come.
Devasadan Mandir? Or homes?
No, homes, actually.
Okay.
That's how I had connection with you.
Okay.
And of course, St. Louis also. Anyway, that the increase now, because of that COVID, past 3 years, that Bhagavatam, what you are giving classes, I think not just me, everybody got attracted to that. So thank you for that, Maharaj.
Well, thank you for your thank you.
I had one question. Even though Krishna sings Srimad Bhagavad Gita, right? It's a song of God. But Bhagavatam is so more attractive. Is that, it's just my speculation, maybe you can explain me. Even though Krishna's pastimes, everything is there in Srimad Bhagavatam, I can see, other than 10th canto, all others are dealing with the devotees of Lord Krishna. So what does that mean? Basically, your glorification of devotees will give more connection to Krishna. I just want to understand.
Well, you're perhaps overstating what the other cantos besides Canto 10 are about. They're devotees that are not yet Brajvasis, but it's also about the Lord because they're devotees of the Lord. But I'm looking at this interesting mirror on the wall here. It's a circular mirror, and then there's little like rays coming out from that circular mirror, like rays of light of the sun, and then little balls. So those are like the other cantos, and the center is the 10th canto. So Krishna's at the center. But the other parts of Srimad-Bhagavatam, they're also Krishna connected. And they help one get prepared and qualified to enter into the 10th canto. It's, something like that. But it's different aspects of Krishna and Krishna's devotees and Krishna's expansions, and coming to this different elements or steps and stages of coming to pure devotion. Like, this little example of King Ketu. And he became a perfected person, although he was attached. And so many other things. So, how to come to the stage of pure devotion, and then what's the object of pure devotion? The highest object of pure devotion. So it's composed in such a way to bring us to pure devotion to Krishna. Here's another way to answer your question. This is the Prabhupada. In the days when Prabhupada, the cantos of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 of the cantos were coming out, and our book distributors, at least, the airport party distributors were distributing Canto 3, Part 3, or Canto 4, Part 4. And some of the book distributors asked Prabhupada, what do we say when people ask, what about the other parts? Prabhupada said, you can say, when you lick on ice cream, it doesn't matter what side you lick on, it's all sweet. And it works. Yeah. So it's composed in such a way it draws one to Krishna wherever you enter it. But then it also has a big, there's in stages from 1st to 12, Canto 12, by design. So it's nice to read sequentially. But if one doesn't, it draws you to Krishna. That's what Bhagavatam does. The Samabonam, the absolute truth. There were 2 parts to your question. It was only one part. What's the other part?
The other part was like, glorification of devotees. That most of them in Srimad-Bhagavatam, like Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj. And
it's the process and the characteristic of one who's properly situated in the process of bhakti. Moving from, in Dhruva, from unqualified to qualified, but what's the qualification that moved him? And, Prahlad is Prahlad, Vaikuntha Prahlad. There's bhakta, and there's the object of bhakti, and there's the relationship. So all three have to be there, inclusive. You want to say something, Aruda? We can give the microphone up here.
Maharaj, I just wanted to share my own experience with Bhagavatam.
The lover of the Bhagavatam speaking.
Just with children, I've been doing classes, online classes for over 10 years, and I've seen the difference in children, how they evolve after they hear regularly Bhagavatam. And also, yes, and so when I do my seminars on homeschool, on parenting, I notice how most of the parents are not willing to do homeschooling. So I've been trying to emphasize the reading of Bhagavatam for children who are going to school, and it makes a very big difference. And that was my inspiration to do these guidebooks, Canto 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're working on 6th Canto, just so parents who cannot homeschool and they're not willing to homeschool, they can still inculcate in the children the love for Bhagavatam. And so
It's life-changing.
it's life-changing.
Character building. It's something that's so important in parenting. Just Bhagavatam will address it naturally, spiritually. You have something?
Guru Maharaj. Just the contemplation, Guru Maharaj, just wanted to hear from you. It's very inspiring, the whole class and the devotee sharing, but I've been struggling something in my heart, so just want to share that. You're mentioning about this goal setting and how it actually manifests and the intelligence comes through Vaisheshik Prabhu's, but of course it's true for anyone. I've been trying probably since I began devotional service, but every time it's just so, I'm sorry.
You set goals that are spiritual and you don't make it, and you feel defeated or something.
Yeah, it's so disheartening. And as you're describing, I was remembering all through my academics or work, whatever I said, I just work and it was just happening. Of course, I mean, not just the hard work part, but definitely Krishna's mercy, whether I recognize or not.
This is now academic versus spiritual. That's what you're making this comparison?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. So I'm just thinking, I mean, I understand Krishna may be teaching for me, but just want to express that because of that disheartening and feeling of despair, I feel I'm not reciprocating enough for the mercy that I'm receiving.
Well, maybe hit the reset button, and when you're striving spiritually, there's an important companion type of consciousness or realization that's needed, or consciousness and then realization, and that is you can't do this on your own. Material things may seem like you're doing it on your own, and that's illusion, but spiritual things don't work that way. Purposefully. Because spiritual things doesn't mean material consciousness becomes strengthened. It means your sense of connection with Krishna becomes strengthened. So the calling out, the prayerful mood, on behalf of Krishna. So the Krishna factor of setting goals and striving for those goals is an irreplaceable component. And then when that Krishna consciousness is there, whether the goal is reached by your calculation or not, Krishna consciousness is there.
Just wanted to hear from your personal experience. I'm sure you would have faced many obstacles.
I'm just giving you the realization. Take anything. Take chanting japa. The stage of absorption is not possible on our own. I know that's easy to say, and then what are you going to do about it? You can feel despair because I can't do it on my own. Yes, that's an option. That's not a good option. So then you cultivate depending upon Krishna as you're striving. It's effort and mercy. That's the principle. You've heard that so many times. Okay. I think online questions we're going to end because it's late. And I have to travel tomorrow morning.
This is from Gopal Hari Prabhu Maharaj.
Uh-huh.
In comparison to other books, Srila Prabhupada spent most amount of time commenting on Srimad-Bhagavatam. Although he said that Chaitanya Charitamrita is PhD, he spent most time on Srimad-Bhagavatam. Why?
That's a comment. Why? Well, first of all, I don't know if he personally spent more time with Bhagavatam, other than, considering its the number of cantos and the number of pages and everything. But that's where he started. He came to America was first canto, and his plan was all 12 cantos. And you could say it the other way. Wait a minute, he didn't complete the 12 cantos. Because he did Chaitanya Charitamrita and Nectar Devotion and Nectar of Instruction and Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and did so many other things. He didn't stay focused on Srimad-Bhagavatam because he wanted a broader perspective or whatever it was that was moving him. But that was from the get-go. And from the get-go, this is a very, you know this, and the teachings I heard it from your brother. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the highest teaching. The teaching of Lord Chaitanya is not different than the teaching of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching is the highest teaching. That's what your brother teaches. That was Jiva Goswami's strategy, to glorify Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that his teaching is the highest. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the highest. Srimad-Bhagavatam is Lord Chaitanya's teaching, and vice versa, and therefore Lord Chaitanya's teaching is the highest. So you start with the first one. And that's what Prabhupada's plan was. He was told, think about it, Gopal Hari, he was told, instructed by Bhaktisiddhanta, take the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the Western world. Did he take teachings of Lord Chaitanya? Did he take Chaitanya Charitamrita? He carried it with him on the boat, but it was Srimad-Bhagavatam is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So Srimad-Bhagavatam, that was his emphasis. Something else online?
I don't know this is from which devotee. I want to share that I have been taking guidance from Aruda Mataji's Srimad-Bhagavatam books for my youth group. It is so nicely done with teachings of Srimad-Bhagavatam for all ages. Thank you.
Yeah, I've heard similar. Okay, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai. Remember, Srimad-Bhagavatam says, somehow.